Voting is a privilege.
Not voting is a privilege, too. If you choose to not vote, to make a statement by not voting, well and good. At least your opinion, though silent, has been heard.
On the other hand, if you don't vote because you're lazy or haven't bothered to explore the issues,
or think your vote doesn't count, well, that's not good at all.
In many elections, a few voters located in a small area can decide a whole contest. Operation Big Vote is AFSCME's Election Day program to get the maximum vote out in key areas around the country.
Carrying out a successful Big Vote operation takes planning, effort, time, and volunteers.
Your union, concerned with the welfare of its members and everyone else, needs to organize a Get Out the Vote campaign.
At the heart of each Big Vote, Get Out the Vote effort are the local people committee members and other union activists who have demonstrated qualities of leadership and organizational skills.
Some of the key jobs that need to be filled in a Big Vote operation include the research director, who is responsible for examining laws, ordinances, and actual past practices which govern voting.
The targeting director. This person chooses the precincts in which Big Vote should be run, those precincts which are most likely to support AFSCME-backed candidates and make it worthwhile to mount a major effort.
The identification director must identify by name, address, and telephone number as many registered voters in the targeted precincts as possible.
The headquarters and personnel director selects and equips the place from which telephone contacts will be conducted.
Throughout the big day, precinct turnout percentages are tracked by the Voter Turnout Control Center coordinator.
Another important member of the Big Vote Committee is the food coordinator, who has the responsibility of feeding Big Vote's army of Election Day volunteers.
Sound over-organized? Don't you believe it? Elections are won by the majority of votes cast and not by wishful thinking. An organized Get Out the Vote campaign provides the best chance for AFSCME interests to prevail. The Big Vote Committee needs to study not only the laws relating to elections, but the actual practices of the local area.
It needs to bone up on the procedures and deadlines for absentee balloting.
It must know acceptable ways to demonstrate proper ballot and voting machine procedures at the polling place, and anything else it can find pertaining to the rights of voters. The committee needs to train poll watchers and provide backup on Election Day inside and outside the polling places.
The Big Vote Committee must learn the mechanics of voting, such as the type of ballot or voting machine, the locations of polling places, the hours of voting, and so forth.
The Big Vote Committee also needs to determine the responsibilities of Election Day officials, how they were chosen and trained, and what to do if voting machines break down, or if the supply of ballots runs out, or a ballot is challenged. Leadership of the Big Vote Committee is not for the faint-hearted.
In every election, there are certain precincts which need and deserve attention, and some that might just as well be left alone. The process of identifying these precincts is called targeting. Targeting is hard work. Nevertheless, it's one of the most important pre-election jobs of the Big Vote Committee.
Targeting is a procedure for finding out the vote potential of each precinct, so future efforts can be directed toward those most likely to yield results. You look at the past performance of a precinct, at the percentage of voters who normally vote for our kinds of candidates.
You consider turnout, which is the average percentage of registered voters who go to the polls.
You consider volume, that is the actual number of registered voters in a precinct. The focus of the Big Vote effort is on the high support precincts, those that can be counted on to give 80% or more of their vote to the kind of liberal candidate AFSCME normally supports.
For every 100 additional voters brought to the polls in a high support precinct, our candidates will receive 80 additional votes.
A successful effort of this kind takes a lot of work in the final days of the campaign and a massive effort on Election Day.
Every registered voter in these high support districts must be called before Election Day to remind them of the importance and the date of the election. An urgent task of the Big Vote Committee is to acquire a place, order phones installed, and train the phone workers.
There are guidelines for determining how many phones to install, what kinds of phones are best, how they should be placed, and what other furnishings will be needed. There's no need to work in the dark. Make use of AFSCME handbooks, such as How to Prepare for a Successful Get Out the Vote Drive.
Literature must be prepared well in advance of need. Every piece should show the Election Day telephone assistance number.
As Election Day nears, the Big Vote Coordinator organizes precinct operations. At least 1 week before the election, the coordinator conducts a training session for precinct captains and distributes polling place information, including locations and hours, samples of pre-election day telephone messages,
and enough armbands, badges, or buttons for all Election Day workers.
Now the moment of truth is drawing near. It's the weekend before the election. Everything is in place to test the efficiency of our local political machine. We're approaching the last 100 hours before Election Day.
Take note, precincts have been targeted.
Voters have been identified.
Everyone with special responsibilities knows what is expected of them.
Volunteers are called to a meeting on the Sunday before Election Day. Monday is too late. There won't be enough time to correct problems which may arise.
Stagger the meeting times for various groups: poll watchers, telephoners, poll workers, runners, sign crews, drivers, and others. Tell each group only what they need to know. Don't burden them with information that has nothing to do with them.
Train the poll watchers.
Train the telephoners.
Train the poll workers.
Train the runners.
Train the sign and sound crews.
Train the drivers.
Since all voters in high support precincts are viewed as supporters, every single one should be visited or contacted on the weekend before Election Day.
Leave sampled ballots, slate cards, etc. Will the voters need help in getting to their polling place? Make a note of it.
Callers phone supporters to remind them of their polling places and voting hours. Volunteers complete literature drops.
Signs urging voters to go to the polls are hung everywhere.
Communities are blanketed with door hangers carrying the Election Day transportation number.
Precinct workers and poll watchers get a final briefing.
And the food committee gets ready to deliver its supply of coffee, sodas, lunches, and snacks. Election Day workers can work straight through the day only if their lunches are brought to them at the polling places.
All of this takes careful advanced planning and precise timing by the food committee.
Finally, Election Day dawns. At Operation Big Vote headquarters, all the planning turns to action.
The turnout control chart is assembled on the wall, and the coffee started.
Poll watchers begin calling in at 7 a.m.
Their precinct is recorded on the chart.
These are important calls because they let the center director know that the poll watchers are in place and have access to a phone. If no call is received, a runner will be dispatched.
Every hour on the hour, the poll watchers call in the count from their precincts to a separate incoming phone bank. The percentage of turnouts is computed and recorded on the chart.
Based on these results, judgments are made on where to send the sound trucks and flying squads of backup canvassers, and where to concentrate phone calls.
As the morning moves on, the Transportation Committee swings into motion. Requests for transportation to the polling places are received and logged.
The vehicles are readied for the day's work.
The drivers are given their hourly assignments.
Transportation is a major part of the Big Vote effort. It involves picking up the people at the right time, taking them to the polls, waiting for them, and then returning them to their homes.
Back at Big Vote headquarters, the calls come in from the polls hour by hour. The big chart on the wall of the Voter Control Center slowly fills up with turnout information.
As lunchtime approaches, the efforts of the Food Committee become visible as meals and snacks are delivered to headquarters and dispatched to poll workers and squads in the area.
By midday, the chart shows that the pace of voting is beginning to drag in several key precincts. That's the signal for action as each hour's reports pour into the center.
A decision is made to dispatch the flying squads of backup canvassers into the lagging districts.
The squads are briefed on their assignments.
They pick up their literature and signs, file out of headquarters, and assemble at their designated vehicles.
They pile into the vans and unload again at a central point in one of the low turnout precincts.
Specific blocks are assigned to the squads, and they fan out through the precinct. They split up and work both sides of the street. They knock on every door.
If anyone in the house has not as yet voted, a car is summoned from the transportation pool.
Wherever a household has already voted, bright-colored banners saying, "I have voted, have you?" are placed on the front lawn.
By late in the day, these banners have spread like an orange and black wave throughout the community.
Meanwhile, back at Big Vote headquarters, the outgoing phone bank is calling homes in the same precinct. The message is short and to the point to increase the number of calls. The residents are told that their votes are really needed and that there are only a few hours until the polls close. They're also asked if they or anyone in their family need a ride to the polls.
Most of the responses are friendly and enthusiastic, since these precincts support Big Vote candidates 3 or 4 to 1. Reminder calls are made into pre-selected precincts until or unless calls from poll workers identify other high-support precincts which are lagging in turnout.
By now, sound units have been dispatched to several of the lagging precincts to heighten the excitement and the activity.
This is Reverend Jesse Jackson. On November 4th, we all have a very big decision to make. We can decide to be irresponsible citizens, stay at home and not exercise your right to vote. You can assume the responsibility that so many fought hard to achieve and even died for. You can go to the polls and vote. Vote Tuesday, November the 4th.
Throughout the afternoon and into the early evening hours, phone squads, canvassers, and sound trucks do their thing to get the vote out, based on information flowing into the turnout control center.
At around 7 p.m., the last of the reports come into Big Vote headquarters. The sound trucks and flying squads are dispersed one last time. This time they're going to those polling places where long lines are forming. Their assignment is to keep the people in line and make sure that every possible vote is cast.
It's now a little past 8 p.m. and the first scattered returns are coming in. Operation Big Vote has once again had a major impact on an election.
As the results continue to pour in, it is obvious that the black community in this city has added thousands of votes to AFSCME-supported candidates.
And now it's all worth the effort.
All the canvassing,
The thousands of phone calls,
the assembling of the flying squads.
all those signs in the community.
It's all worth it because Operation Big Vote, the muscle of AFSCME and the People Committee have produced victory.
And the key to that muscle is volunteers. Each AFSCME volunteer is worth hundreds of votes to a candidate. That means power for you and your union.
So get involved. Volunteer for your local's People Committee. Here's one place where your time and effort will make a difference.